What's up? It's Matt. We are back on the road live with another restaurant expert roundup. Today's guest, Nick, tell us who you are, tell us where you're at, and tell us about yourself.
My name is Nick Mandelberg. I've been working as a restaurant manager and general manager for the last 20 years here in Austin, Texas. Family man, 4 kids, so boisterous life in and outside of work. Recently released my book, The Little Black Book of Serving and Bartending.
Yep.
Really excited about it, and glad to be here and chat about it.
How old are your kids?
My son just turned 10, and I've got girls 3, 5, and 7.
Nice. So you got some years ahead of you. Mine are 17 and 19. So
wow.
I've gotten through those phases. But I think it's interesting though, because I've heard people talk about it's hard to get these kids nowadays to work in the restaurant business or to listen or to work hard. Gotta sneeze. I've also heard the examples of it's not that hard to get people in the restaurant, the restaurant business to work. That if there's band directors and high school football coaches and basketball coaches getting kids to do what they want, it just comes down to the leadership inside the 4 walls.
I've found that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What happened?
Sorry.
I don't know what happened here.
You got me? I think it's a little of both. I think that there are options for kids now compared to, 10, 15, 20 years ago. There's more options to make money than there were, back when we were doing it. I also think that if, for the right environment and the right work experience, it's somewhat easier for some than others to gravitate staff to their operation.
Yeah, it's definitely out there. And you talked about environments in the workplace, and one of your specialties being, understanding the workforce, understanding each person's nuances. We've got a lot of employees at our company, and there's some people that are single, some that are married, some that are single parents, some that are in difficult situations, and you've got to have some sympathy to everybody's situation. You got to lead everybody down the right path, but you also have to have some sympathy. And I think that this past 2 years has probably shown us the most reasons to have sympathetic, because I've been in restaurants where you've got people in there that are voting for this person. You got people that want masks, that don't want masks, that believe in vaccine, don't believe in vaccine. Empathy's got to be at an all-time high of need right now, right?
Absolutely. To your point, the game's changing every week, and riding that line between, taking care of people and still conducting business while, maintaining everyone's safety, not only staff and guests. It's been an interesting tightrope.
What's been the biggest adjustment for you from a management standpoint the last couple of years? I don't know what Texas has been like from a standpoint of shutdowns, but I've talked to restaurants. They're like, hey, we went from being 99% dine-in, servers having relationships, the staff having a lot of fun, to for 6 months, nobody walked in our front doors, understaffed, overworked, stressed, and no fun. What's been some of the biggest adjustments for you?
Yeah, I think the stress is definitely there. I think, Texas generally was chomping at the bit to get back to dine-in service, not only from the restaurant side, but also from the guest side. So I feel that we more than likely had, a less of a return to, somewhat normal than a lot of places did. I think the biggest thing to overcome was, one of the principles I go back to frequently is what motivates people, not only as a guest dining, but more importantly, what motivates staff and managers. And I think what motivates people has changed dramatically. There's it's always been a weighing the reward of what they do against, the time spent. And now it's, balancing the risk of it in addition to the reward, and whether it's the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah. When did you start writing the book?
I started writing the book, I want to say January of 2020.
So right before all this.
Sorry, no, January 2021.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
right in the middle of it. And as from 1,000 coaching conversations over the years, I've compiled notes of things that that resonated with staff members and fellow managers for a long time. I was listening to a book on tape on my way to work one day, and it was described something as writing a book is as simple as writing a page a day, and I was off to the races. So
yeah, it's definitely a much harder task when you look at it on paper, like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And then when you break it down to bite-sized chunks, it becomes a little more doable, especially when you come up with a good structure of it. What was the motivation behind the topic of the book and the theme of the book?
I think it kind of boils down to two things, really. One is I've always felt, making that jump from server bartender to manager, that there's a disconnect between the conversation that should be occurring there. When a management team asks a staff to do something, whether that's for the betterment of the execution of the operation or something coming down from on top, the why behind it usually doesn't follow. And so there's a lot of kickback as to, well, why am I supposed to do this? And the way I see it, there's a lot of things that serve to benefit the staff financially as far as their operation and their percentages they're pulling if they embrace these things out of the gate. So sort of bridging that disconnect and understanding between the two parties. And then secondly, you've seen more restaurants than I have, and kind of the old adage that when you walk in to apply for a job, it's, do you have 2 years experience? But you don't really know what the development was in those 2 years that you're requiring when they walk in the door.
Yeah.
So nobody, if 2 years experience is all you're looking for, and then you're putting your buzzwords and your menu on their skill set, did anybody ever teach them how to deal with a guest that's irate and angry and screaming at them, or a manager that's at its wit's end and angry for whatever reason, or staff members that are pitting against each other? And that, I think, could serve a lot of people really well if they understood what was making people tick and why, how to overcome those hurdles without internalizing them. So that was kind of the backbone.
Yeah, 2 years experience. I mean, you could say, hey, you got 2 years experience on Bill Belichick's coaching staff, or 2 years experience on the Bengals coaching staff from back 10 years ago, and that person might be a high school education and a PhD.
Right.
No, I think from my standpoint too, I've heard this a lot. I'll never forget. I was actually at a chain restaurant. My wife and I were, probably, I don't know, it's probably 6 months ago in Arizona, where I'm actually at now. And we're talking to our bartender who was taking care of our food. We're at the bar eating, and I made a comment. He talked, how long you've been in business, blah, blah, blah. And I made a comment about, man, it looks like you're ready for management, because this guy was killing. I could tell the way he was handling. He's like, hey, no way, bro. I'd take a pay cut, a big one. And he's like, I'd take a pay cut for more stress, more responsibility, more hours, and less fun. And I'm like, that sucks, because, most businesses, the goal is to rise the ladder, is to, show off your skills and go to the next level and teach. And when people feel in that model, certain models, de-incentivized to do that, that's kind of sucks, because it's stealing the best talent that could be there.
I did the same thing. It definitely was a pay cut. If my wife hadn't been working at the time that I made that leap, we wouldn't have made it. But the goal line being, a general manager and running an operation and sort of guiding a ship was really exciting to me. And the mentors that I saw doing it, there's one particular individual that comes to mind that he was a legal mob boss. There was nothing funny going on, but it was just he'd walk in the door and everybody would shake his hand, and he was the star of the show. And I loved that sort of romanticized version of what that job is, and I wanted it, so I went after it. And yes, it was a pay cut to start, but at the top it's not. It's definitely, I've been in that role for 12 years, and I've had a lot of fun and made a lot of money and a lot of contacts, and it's been a good run.
Yeah, I think it comes down to also maybe people seeing an opportunity that maybe the brand you were in, the restaurants you were in, and seeing that you could get the general manager and seeing where you wanted to get, because you got to, you can't jump steps. If you jump steps, you miss key elements that you have to learn. I mean, my business right now, we've got some growing pains the last 6 months that, it makes me mad that we had to go through them. But I also realized one of my top managers, like, Matt, if we hadn't, Doug's like, Matt, if we hadn't done this, this, or this, we wouldn't have learned it. You can't skip over things, just like you can't go from, server to general manager. If you do, man, you're in for a whirlwind of pain, I would imagine. What's been your biggest aha moment as a general manager versus, the past experiences?
I've, a lot of high volume, fine dining casual has been a bulk of my work experience. And there was a giant moment about 4 or 5 years in for me that I realized just I'm a big numbers guy, and seeing the financial and emotional strain of the turnover that is common in this industry, and realizing that no matter how solid the training program is, how solid the food and beverage that we're serving are, that if we weren't doing our part and I wasn't the leader that they needed, we were going to continue churning and burning people like a meat grinder.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest aha moment for me, that it was no longer a chess game of moving pieces. It was developing the relationships and building a team that wanted to succeed and wanted to be there, whether somebody was standing behind them or not.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down, like you mentioned earlier, understanding every employee. Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are motivated by money. Some are motivated by flexibility in the restaurant space. Some are motivated with high fives. Some are motivated with tough love. And I had a buddy of mine, I can't remember what the number was, but he was talking about one day on the cost of acquiring new employees. Like, everybody talks about new customers, lost customers. How do you get customers to come back? How do you get new customers? He's like, it's no different than employees. It's just a hell of a lot more expensive and harder. He said, because you got to analyze, you've got people on your team, that churn of hiring and firing plays on the staff, hurts the team, hurts it's the word I'm looking for, hurts the morale, but also is expensive, because the time and effort you put into somebody to see them go away in a couple months can be a huge detriment. But also, he said his common thing he found was, a lot of it was, for him, it wasn't understanding how each person was different, how everybody wasn't going to fit into an exact mold,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't treat everybody the exact same.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time. How can people find the book? How can they find more information about you?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Little Black Book is available on Amazon, both as digital and print copy. And it has a page on Facebook as well, under Little Black Book of Serving and Bartending. And as someone who has frequented your content of late, the aha moments, I really appreciate what you're putting out there.
No, I appreciate that. And get online, get the book on Amazon. to me, the most important part is after you get the book, after you consume it, go on Amazon, tell Amazon how awesome Nick's book is, and that other people should buy it, because a lot of times we forget to do that. We forget to get that praise. Everybody wants to know what's going on and how it impacts your life. And it's a great book, great read. Wish I had it with me. It's in the office. Wasn't thinking about bringing it with me in Arizona because it's on the shelf in there. But I appreciate all you do, and I appreciate the insights. And thanks for being on today.
Hey, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nick.